This is my review of the Pink Floyd album, The Wall. It was released in 1979, produced by Bob Ezrin and Dave Gilmour, James Guthrie, and Roger Waters. So, this was the second Pink Floyd album I got, I'm pretty sure. Not entirely sure, but because I can't remember exactly, I can't remember specifically getting this, but I remember having it at certain times. It makes me pretty sure it was the second one I got. I got into this as a whole probably quicker than most of their albums. I think that was because I was aware of the story of it and stuff. It was actually a couple years, I had the album for a couple years before I watched the movie, so I didn't I guess get the whole story that well, but I think I'd read a summary of it probably on Wikipedia or something, and reading the lyrics and stuff like that, so I knew that it had a story, and because of that I would listen to it all the way through because it should be listened to as a whole since I had a story. And so for kind of that reason, I guess it was one of their first albums I would listen to all the way through a lot. Even though I wasn't always the biggest fan of some of the songs on here, I think some of the shorter songs, especially towards the end of both sides of the album, but I've kind of grown to appreciate those more. I think that if you'd asked me a couple years ago, I would have ranked this album pretty low of theirs, because for some reason I had kind of turned on it a little bit and wasn't as big of a fan of it. I've kind of changed that opinion through, I'd listened to it a month ago and really enjoyed it, and then listening to it again before doing this review, I really enjoyed it. I think that I just kind of had over listened to it when I was young, and then I hadn't listened to it for a really long time, and had kind of, I don't know, I guess let other people's kind of negative opinions of it affect my perception of it a little bit. And then, I don't know, listening to it now, I'm like, okay, this is actually a lot better than what I had been saying. So yeah, this album, when they were making it, there was a lot of stuff going on with the band. I'm not going to go into it a whole bunch because I'm sure everybody knows it probably even better than I do. But this is the last of the, I guess most people consider this kind of the last of their classic era of albums. It's the last one with the four of them on it. Richard Wright was fired while they were making this, I think, because Roger didn't think he was contributing enough or something, and he did the tour with them but wasn't an official member of the band, but he was the only one that made money because of that or something. So yeah, he's not on the next album, and then the album after that, Roger's gone, so the four of them don't make another album together. And this is, I don't know, it definitely, I would say most people I think consider their classic run of albums from Dark Side to this, and they're all really good sounding albums, I think, with Animals probably being the worst sounding, but that's just but that doesn't hurt it. It just sounds like the, I don't know, kind of the darkest and murkiest, where is Wish You Were Here and Dark Side all have really clean productions, and this has a really I think clean sounding production too, but it's really bombastic and Ezrin-y. There's orchestrated bits and stuff like that they wouldn't, normally didn't use. I guess they had orchestration on stuff, but stuff that they hadn't used on Dark Side and Wish You Were Here and Animals. So definitely notice Ezrin on this album, and some people might like that more than others. I like it. I think he did a good job here. But that album's pretty much all written by Roger, all the songs. David Gilmour has writing credit on a few of the songs, and Ezra has so going into the songs, and I'll try to be kind of quick about this because there's a lot of them. Starts off with In the Flesh, which is really just cool, loud, bombastic way to start the album, because it kind of comes in with this really quiet thing, and then it just they hit the keyboards and it goes nuts. And I just think it's such a great way to set the mood of the whole album. And then it's kind of a lot of the songs on this album are pretty short. That's pretty short one, and it goes into The Thin Ice, which is this kind of quieter song, but it's really great. And then Another Brick in the Wall Part 1, which is kind of a lesser memorable or less memorable version of the more famous one that comes up, but it's good. The Happiest Days of Our Lives next is kind of like the intro song almost to Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, which everybody's heard that song. It's a classic. I like it. I used to not actually surprisingly be that big of a fan of the guitar solo, but now I really think it's great and kind of appreciate it a lot more than what I used to. This was actually, I think, probably the first Pink Floyd song I heard. I remember hearing it on TV, and like there was some show that was talking about it on I don't know, some music channel, and I was like skipping through the TV, and I just remembered it because the kid background like singers in it, I thought they sounded creepy when I first heard it and was listening to it on the TV, and so I remembered that like years later when I heard this finally on the album. I was like, oh, that's that song from the TV with the creepy kids. But anyway, great song. The sixth song, Mother, another great song. Love the guitar solo on it. I like how on this album there's a lot of like Dave and Roger kind of trading off vocals, and I really like that, and they do it on this song. Nick Mason doesn't play drums on this song. It's Toto's drummer, I think, which I'm not really familiar with that band. But the seventh song, Goodbye Blue Sky, another great one. This one kind of took me a while to get into. I wasn't really the biggest fan of it when I was younger, but it's one that I like a lot now. The Empty Spaces is, I've always thought of as more of kind of like an intro to the ninth song, Young Lust, which is one of my favorite songs on the album for the guitar. I think Dave Gilmour's guitar playing on this whole album is great. Like this is one of, I think, his best guitar albums. 10th song, One of My Turns, another cool one. I like the vocals of Roger on a lot of this album too. Like Roger, I think like he's not technically a great singer, but I think he's a little bit underrated as a vocalist in terms of like the way like the emotion he's able to get across in his voice, because he's able to do all these really just like, I don't know, he's able to just sound so emotional in his songs, and also like so angry at different things. Like I've never heard I don't think anybody sound quite as angry as him in their singing in some of the parts. And also just like the different kind of voices he's able to do, and kind of almost like acting that he does with his voice on some of this album, I think is really impressive, and just like his performance all over this album is really great. Don't Leave Me Now, kind of it's one that I used to not like at all, but now I think it's really cool, like the way it sounds and everything. Then Another Brick in the Wall Part 3, which I've always, it's kind of the least memorable of the three to me, but good, just kind of goes, sounds like the other two with different lyrics. Goodbye Cruel World, one that I used to not really like that much, but it's definitely grown on me. Hey You, the start of the second disc, was always kind of a favorite of mine growing up, and I think it's one of the hits. I honestly, like, I didn't grow up listening to rock radio, so I don't really know that well what the songs that they play on there are, so I think that this is one of the ones that gets radio play from this album, but not sure. The 15th song, Is There Anybody Out There? It's kind of this weird, more like acoustic-y thing that I definitely wasn't into when I was younger, but now I think it's pretty cool. Nobody Home, I've always kind of liked, but can't really think of a lot to say about it now. Vera, kind of a short song that another like short song that I've always liked, that kind of goes into Bring the Boys Back Home, which is this kind of like weird song, but I like it. Then Comfortably Numb, everybody I think knows Comfortably Numb for the most part. Another one where I really like the trade-off back and forth between Roger and Dave doing the vocals, and more great guitar work from Gilmore. Uh, the Show Must Go On is another song I always really liked off the album. The 21st song, In the Flesh, is kind of like the first song. Like, it's basically the first song of the album over again, but with different lyrics. I could see like the lyrics of this song bothering some people because it's when he's having his whole like fascist dictator hallucination or whatever is going on during that part of the story. I don't know. I always thought this part of the story was kind of confusing. 22, Run Like Hell. This one actually, like, I think it's one of the more popular ones, and it's never really been one of my more favorite songs on the album, so I never really got that, like, why it is quite as popular as what it is, but I think it's a good song. Waiting for the Worms, the next one, another one that I think is pretty cool. Stop is just like the short thing, and then The Trial, going with the co-write from Ezrin. This is really weird, kind of almost like theater piece of a song, and Roger does all these different voices, and I think that's why I always kind of liked it. I still like it, but I think that what kind of got me into it was just listening to Roger do all those different voices and stuff, and I thought it was cool that he kind of like acted through the song. And then it ends with Outside the Wall, which I always kind of found boring when I was growing up, but now I get it. Like, it's a cool way to end the album. So yeah, The Wall, I think I used to kind of underrate this album for a while. Like, I mean, obviously I really liked it when I was young, but then I just went through a couple of years where I didn't really listen to it, and my opinion of it kind of dropped. But now I definitely think it's probably a top 5 album of theirs for me, so definitely a great album. If you haven't heard it, you